Being Singaporean, you must understand that I really enjoy a good bowl of bak chor mee. It's also known as minced pork noodles or minced meat noodles, whatever.
But then one day,
While I was taking a shit, because that's where all great revelations come from, I realized that almost every country has their version of minced meat noodles. The Italians have the spaghetti bolognese, Chinese have the jjajangmyeon, the Koreans have the jjajangmyeon, which is similar but not the same. The Indonesians have the mi bakso, but today specifically I want to talk about the Japanese version, the Mazesoba. Now I'm really excited for this because the Japanese are masters of umami. Like whatever you do, there is a Japanese guy that has been doing it all his life and is 10 times better than you'll ever be. I've tried it before at restaurants and I really enjoyed it, which is why I'm so excited to try to make it. So let's jump right into it.
First up, grab a bowl and measure out 500 grams of bread flour. Then measure 5 grams of salt, and you want to be as precise as you can. And then you're going to measure out something we call the Kansui, which is essentially sodium carbonate, and you can get this by baking baking soda for 200 degrees Celsius for 1 hour. This cocaine-like substance is what's gonna make your noodles real chewy, or what we call QQ, and it's a thing. Then you're gonna measure out 500 milliliters of water, and I have no idea why I used the weighing scale even though there were readings on my flask. Pour in your kansui and salt and mix well till everything's well dissolved. And as slowly as you can, pour that in bit by bit, mixing well every time. This is to ensure maximum hydration in your dough, and that is so important. And once you get to about this stage, you can go ahead and use your hands and go in and rub it between your fingers. This might seem like a time-consuming process, but it will really save you a lot of time later on. So yeah, a well-hydrated dough should come together and fall apart quite easily in your hands like that. And once you get that, you can go ahead and dump all of that into a Ziploc bag and get as much air out of there as possible. Seal it up and let it rest for half an hour. And don't forget to wash your hands.
You're nasty.
After half an hour, we have to flatten the dough, and the easiest way to do this is to toss it in a tote bag, put it on the floor, and really knead the fella out with your feet. And I mean, really go to town. Do that till it's about 1.5 centimeters thick. And if your bag broke like mine did, just put it in a new Ziploc bag and move on. Rest it for another half an hour. Now, being the idiot that I am, I obviously forgot to record this part, but what I did was to essentially cut it into the width of slightly less than my pasta machine. And here I am without a roller, using my wine bottle to roll it out till it fits the first setting of my pasta machine. At this point in time, I cut my dough in half just so it's easier to work with. And then I also laminated my dough by folding it in half. Now this is a compulsory step. Please do not skip it. Put it back into the pasta machine on the very first setting before you go any thinner. It's also important not to skip any steps, so go from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, and so on and so forth. I went up to 6, but it's really up to your personal preference. Once that's done, switch to your noodle attachment and start cutting your noodles. And guys, rolling out your own handmade noodles from scratch is probably one of the best feelings in the world. I mean, come on, man. About halfway through, I like to stick my chopsticks behind and roll it out like that. There you have it, your very own homemade ramen noodles. Just dust it with a bit of cornstarch and set it aside. Remember to also let it rest for one whole day before using it. I literally have this in my freezer at all times. Next, we're gonna move on to the aroma oil. Dice up 1 large onion, and just because I had some on hand, I couldn't resist putting in some black garlic. This really gives it that sweetness and umami that really just makes it pop. I used about 6 or 7 cloves of these. Then, in a medium saucepan, combine 200 milliliters of neutral oil as well as your aromatics and leave it at a very low heat. This can go on for about half an hour, and it will transform from this to this. And I know it looks like it's burning, but it's really okay. Go ahead and sieve out the solids and you will have your own aroma oil. Now for the meat, we're gonna go pretty ham on the garlic here. So I used about 7 to 8 cloves, and you wanna really dice them up. And try as much as you can not to be an idiot like me and cut your hand. Please be careful, guys. You're also gonna wanna chop up a couple of chili padis depending on how spicy you want it. And no matter what you do, just remember, just don't touch your eyes like how I'm about to here, because it sucks. Next up, in a hot pan, throw in a couple tablespoons of neutral oil, and when it starts to smoke, you can throw in your ground pork. And we really want to give the fella a nice sear. Don't forget to also give them a cheeky pinch of salt at this point. Once they're brown on both sides, you can go ahead and start mashing them up. The recipe asks for it to be quite fine, but honestly, I kinda like it chunky. Once that's done, add in your garlic and chili, give it a nice mix, and don't forget to make a huge mess that you have to clean up later. And then you gotta add in 3 tablespoons of mirin, a tablespoon of shoyu, and just because I like it spicy, a couple of teaspoons of chili powder. I also couldn't resist tossing in a couple tablespoons of the aroma oil that we just made. Cause why not, right? Give it another toss and let it cook on low heat for another 5 to 8 minutes and you are done. Now for the final toppings, blend up 1 cup of Kurobashi flakes to powderize it. And then you wanna chop up some garlic chives as well as some spring onions. And lastly, some nori seaweed. And my friend, you are ready to assemble. Grab yourself a bowl, preferably without Mickey Mouse on it. And this was the moment when I realized I forgot to make my tare. So I decided to make an instant one using 1 tablespoon of shoyu and 1 tablespoon of dashi concentrate. Go ahead and spoon in 3 tablespoons of the aroma oil. Cook your ramen in boiling water for a minute or till al dente, and don't forget to run it through cold tap water to wash off the starch. And then mix it well with your tare and aroma oil. And at this point you can have a little fun with the plating. Just add in your garlic chives, your spring onions, your seaweed, your Kurobashi powder, and of course your minced pork. And lastly, we have to crown it off with 1 raw egg yolk. It has to be raw. You know, I didn't write the rules, but it has to be. And at this point, I think you should take a moment to admire your fine accomplishments.
Hello. Hydration is important. This is it. Homemade Mazesoba. From scratch, even the fucking noodles. So obviously the way to eat this is to mix everything up. So that's what I'm gonna do. Starting with the yolk. Alright. Not gonna lie, I was supposed to leave the noodles to rest for 1 day, but I couldn't wait. So. Guys, so fucking good, honestly. Not gonna lie, I think I overcooked the pork a bit. I might have kept the heat on too high, but apart from that, man, flavor is on point. It's creamy, it's extremely savory. You get a lot of the umami from the seaweed, the powder. What's the name of that powder? That powder. You get like freshness from all the spring onions and chives, and it's just a very, very wholesome bite. Oh, look at that. Oh. I'm already finishing this fucking bowl. The most shiok meals I've had, you finish off with a spoon. Don't you think so? There you have it, homemade Mazesoba, aka Japanese minced pork noodles. For the love of God, I hope you guys try this because it's so fucking good. Anyway, let me know how this goes for you. If you enjoyed this video, do me a favor, hit that like and subscribe button. I'll be eternally grateful. And I will see you next time.